Imagine a world where the factories run on steam and the schools or colleges have a big classroom with chalk and slates. Now fast forward the time today, smart factories, artificial intelligence and virtual classroom. Welcome to the journey through time where industry and education have evolved hand in hand. Hi everyone, it's Alidar, and if you need to know how our industry and education have impacted on each other and how these both paradigms evolved, then this video is for you. Today we're going to explore the fascinating journey of industry and education, how industry and education work parallel to each other. So we call it parallel evolution from education 1.0 to education 5.0, and likewise industry 1.0 to industry 5.0. So stick with me to the end of the video to see what future gonna bring for you. The journey started back in 1712 or 18th century when Mr. Thomas Cummins, a British citizen, basically invented a steam engine. So the engine powered by water and oil quickly replace the manual labor. What happened with the manual labor I'm going to discuss about later on. But at the same time, this revolution basically brought a lot of changes in the textile industry. The spinning jenny and the power loom were introduced to increase the productivity in the short period of time. At the same time, because of the steam engine, transportation from one place to another place means from one place to far another place was made possible. So in short, textile industry, metal industry was boomed. On the other hand, because of this labor working as a manual, they were shifted to education 1.0 because of the need of the industry that time. So they were trained how to handle these steam engines and related items. Therefore, the education 1.0 was formed. In this time, the education means that the students basically are going to be part as an passive students, and the teachers are going to be active. So the whole time is called teacher-based education. So teachers are talking and giving the lectures. Students means sit down and just listen. So that was basically the education 1.0, how it shaped up according to the industry 1.0. At the end of the 19th century, electricity was found, which led to a great advancements in technology. Therefore, this is called industry 2.0. And also that is a time where the factories expanded their working hours, so more people were working. There were 3 shifts in a day because of electricity. So days, nights, evenings, every time there's a whole process of production. This time is also called era of mass production. So there's a list of discoveries happened within this era. I think so this era was one of the best era because electricity was found, oil was found, gas, the chemical industries, telephone, the light bulb. In fact, there's a lot of in fact there's a lot of discoveries happen, and nowadays we are in the 21st century because of these discoveries. So we have a very positive, very important impact of these discoveries. Now, in order to meet the needs of these grooming industries, there were a lot of students needed. Therefore, the colleges at that time basically introduced a lot of engineering and science courses. A lot of students are coming in the education sector, getting different skills in order to fulfill the needs of the industry. Therefore, this is the time where the first time education turned into a very structured way of teaching students. However, the prime purpose of the education was to teach students to fulfill the needs of the industry, and it was again one way kind of education system. So teachers were active and students was passive. And this is the time where the literacy rate in England were drastically improved and increased. Industry 3.0 is also called digital revolution in the 20th century, where the more advanced technologies, the internet was found. So the computer was introduced in the market in the world first time. More microprocessors introduced into the process of manufacturing industries in order to make more mass products and more precise and more effective and efficient operational process. I remember back in 80s or maybe mid 80s, my father bought first time computer desktop to our home from Aramco, which is the oil refinery. And very first time I saw the computer, and I think my first game that I played was pool and the chess. But that is a time where where we totally transformed the industry. We were looking at the industry in a different way. More production happened, more precise and more accurate production happened because of the microprocesses, because of the technologies. So I believe this is one of the best times all over the world, is because there's a great change happened in the educational sector. The industry was boomed. The industry is having a new skill set, so therefore new technological and skilled people were expecting to come into the workplace. Therefore the whole structure of education was changed. This is the first time when the colleges, universities introduced student-centric approach. The reason why, because the industry was looking for more leaders, more people who can jump into the work to do things in their own initiative. So therefore, the student-centric approach, which means that more rights were given to the students, so students became more participant in education, in discussions, and the teachers are basically little stayed behind or went behind the scene. This is one of the great changes in the world, and I believe that the student-centric approach we inherited at the moment from the education 3.0. So it's been years that we are basically developing the same method even now. First time industry 4.0, the word was coined in Germany, which led to advanced computational process in the factories. So this is a time where artificial intelligence were involved into the process, into the factories. Big data came up, IoT, Internet of Things came up. So the advanced technologies and more smart technologies introduced in the factories and in the industries. So the smart factories and smart houses, concept came up in this time. Therefore, not just smart houses and factories, therefore the whole supply chain were interconnected intelligently this time. Now, Education 4.0 envisions the same transformation from the industry to the classrooms. But the problem here is that this is the first time the education disconnected with the industry in terms of the industry advancement technology. So in Education 4.0, there is a still inheritance of Education 3.0. However, the concept was basically to add new technologies into education, and these concepts still basically going through. We still are in a process. So these steps were two-folded. Number one, adaptive learning platform. Now, adaptive learning platform means that there's no time to have a student-centric approach, because through the technology that we understood that in the classroom we don't need a standardized educational system where everybody is getting the same level of education and students are more actively participant. It's one step ahead. So now we're looking at individual participation basically. So how individuals are looking and how they are going to gain learning, because learning is teaching. Therefore, adaptive learning platform was introduced, or that the aim is to introduce in the market. Number two, virtual reality simulation. Now, simulation gaming is very effective, and I remember back in 2016, I basically wrote a small article in our local newspaper, in our local magazine in the college, that how we're gonna be engaging our students through simulation games. So this time in Education 4.0, the aim is to bring virtual reality simulation gaming and teach students through different effective methods. I remember one of my colleagues in University of West London, they introduced VR in the classrooms. The whole process, the whole experiment went very good. There are a couple of negative sides. For example, the weight of the VR was so heavy, so students can't take it. So 2 to 3 hours of lectures. These were very fascinating and very engaging. Students were involved, questioning and learning. However, the question is still there. The Education 4.0 is not basically accepted or applied globally in all universities and colleges. There are some one or two universities I know of in the UK and maybe other countries. They basically have adopted a couple of areas, not the whole complete educational system. However, there's a great need of educational system to bring and come closer to Industry 4.0. Industry 5.0 is very contemporary, kind of thing. It's very, very latest. It's happening right now. And I think so. It hasn't happened in everywhere. So this is the concept quickly adopting by the whole industry in the world. Little backwards, if you go a little backwards, Industry 4.0, the great computational process happened. The more technological advancements, added into the process of factories. Robots were made up, so the robots was making things happening in automation in other industries. However, this time Industry 5.0, the humans gone little beyond than robots. We call them cobots. Cobot is a great and a kind of perfect combination between the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence. So this is, we can say, this half human, half robots. So they were introduced in order to control the process of the manufacturing and have a very precision and within a time frame to do the things. So more effective and efficient process has been introduced. When you look at the Education 4.0, as I mentioned previously, the education were basically shaped up according to the industry until the Industry 3.0. The Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0 is very advanced in educational system. So I believe there's a huge gap and vacuum left. So educational system in the world little stayed behind, and it looks like they're running fast to catch up industries. But there's a need to restructure, rethink education system and bring education closer to the industry. In fact, if you look at different research articles, you find out that the articles talking about Education 5.0 as a student-centric approach, which we already discussed in the Education 3.0. So there's a great confusion between Education 3.0, 4.0 and 5.0, or there is no improvement from Education 3.0 to 4.0. In conclusion, we have seen that it's a great parallel evolution between education and industry, and basically industry was shaping up the education from Education 1.0 to 3.0, but there is a great vacuum happened, the great gap happened from Education 3.0 to Education 4.0, whereas it seems that the industry gone far away, or maybe they're running in a very faster speed than the education. So there's a great need to rethink about education system. We are talking about robots and cobots and artificial intelligence and virtual reality in the industrial, in industry. Whereas when you look at the education system, it is really, backwards. Still Education 3.0, still student-centric approach, or maybe the old methods of teaching. Now, if we carry on this way, I assume, or I presume basically, they are going to happen. The couple of things going to definitely happen if we are not going to change it. Number one, unemployment ratio. Now, regardless of inflation and what's happening in the world at the moment, the wars and all these things, we're already facing a huge, unemployability in all over the world. In addition to this unemployability, we're going to gear up the unemployability, because what we're trying to do is that we are teaching our students old ways, and the industry is looking for more advanced learners. So we are basically going to produce aliens to these industries, because when they're going to graduate and they go into the industries, they're not going to be functional. So therefore the unemployability, because these industrial guys not going to hire these people instantly, so the unemployability is going to go up. Number two, stifled innovation and industrial growth. The people in the industry is going to make a lot of struggle to find the person who is the person of the time, who knows the skills, who know how to use the advanced technologies. So this also creates a huge gap, or might going to reduce the industrial progress. Number three, widening socio-economical inequality. It means that we previously explained that there's a lot of universities basically very adoptive. They're bringing a lot of technologies and they're adding into Education 4.0, and they're heading towards Education 5.0. But they are a very small number of educational institutions. So these students who are going to graduate from these universities are going to be always in advantage, whereas the majority of the students going to have disadvantage because they never learned these technologies which are being used in the industry. Therefore, at the end, I assume that the education system or educationists think about it and try to advance the whole process in education and try to merge with the industry as they started their journey 2 centuries ago. Thank you very much for listening. So if you think, guys, you have more things to add on, or you want to comment on my discussion, please leave your comment and I'll try my best to reply you back. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.